are
back
with another
episode
of
your
already
accepted
A
community
rewatch. Woo! Well, actually, it's more like an episode and like 3/4 of an episode.
Yeah,
because
basically.
it's Screw episode 22.
Yeah.
So today we're going to be looking at contemporary American poultry and let me scroll down a little bit. The Art of Discourse, which is season 1, episodes 21 and 22. So right up front, y'all, we all hated episode 22. So today's going to look a little bit different. We're definitely going to go through American poultry. That was a great episode. And then we're just going to sort of crucify the next episode because that's what it deserves. Anyway, so contemporary American poultry is sort of a parody of, American crime mafia syndicate shows or movies that you might have seen. It's all hinging around the Greendale cafeteria and the chicken fingers that are really popular with the students there. The study group is tired of having their chicken fingers always withheld from them because Starburns works there and is hiding them. So they put Abed in charge of the deep fryer, so that way he can sort of smuggle chicken fingers out. And so they sort of build a poultry empire, if you will. And they sort of see this conflict emerge between Jeff and Abed because Abed is the one with the power. Jeff is used to being the one with the power. So yes, he does the little hand silencing things and he knows that his power's gone. But so we're seeing that with the episode, and then just kind of goes from there. So Jonathan,
one quick thing about the hand power thing. I love it when he gets it back and he rubs his hand extra. He's oh, yes.
it feels so good.
Like when Frodo gets the ring back at the very end, he's like, yes,
I like when Thor gets the I'm still worthy.
Yeah, exactly.
So before we move on, have you seen the meme? It's Michael Scott and Ed Truck shaking hands. That's that meme.
Okay, yeah.
And it's Aragorn being crowned the king of Middle Earth, and then Frodo, who is definitely going to keep the ring.
Yeah.
And it's you all gloss over that, where it's at the very end of the movie, Frodo's like, no.
Yeah.
You're like, no! You were the chosen one!
Yeah.
You were supposed to destroy the ring, not join it. Yeah. But people kind of forget about that because there's 30 minutes left in the movie at that point anyway.
Exactly,
but
Gonna have their 5 other endings and
they can sail off into the distance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can't carry it for you.
But I can't carry you!
Sean Astin, respect.
Rest in peace, Bob.
I know.
Rudy.
Yeah.
Anyway, Jonathan, what'd you have for A+ scenes for contemporary American poultry?
I loved the line from Abed. So this episode starts off all them in the study room, as always, usually. And Britta goes into this sad, boring story about her dead cat. And they're holding on and trying to be polite. And then Alba's just chicken run.
And then Troy leaps across the table.
Well, the thing I loved about this, and you guys can probably relate to this, it reminds me of back in college where it's a friends of ours going bowling or volleyball, and you're talking to a guy at a party who's you're just talking to him because just trying to be polite, and it's you just see your
everyone's leaving. You're no, they're gonna forget about me by the time I'm there.
I kind of need a ride. I don't want to walk it.
So
it's bro, I gotta poop. Sorry, I gotta go.
Oh gosh,
you just gotta be hey, it was so good talking to you, man. I'll see you. Are you going to volleyball? I'll see you there, right? And then don't even ask them if they're going. Yeah, or in high school, I think of too usually underclassmen will go to study hall first, then upperclassmen go to lunch. So it's you're a sophomore in study hall. And you hear all the lockers banging because the juniors and seniors are coming back, and all the other study halls are walking past. You're all right, guys, shut up so the teacher can say that we can go. Yeah. All right, guys, all the food's I'm gonna be last in line, right? So I get that too.
And then Pierce, during the whole setup montage, I just felt he took on the energy of Donald Trump really well.
Far the hell of that chicken.
Yeah, exactly. He's which in my head, I'm I feel if it was a little more Pierce, he would have done something racial, where it's I don't know if you want to employ him, but
he was the only non-white employee I had above the top 10 floors of Trump Tower, right?
And so I just loved that, just short little bit. Abed feeding dreadlocks the chicken. I just
that. He's
into it too.
Yeah,
that whole montage, I love. That was the iciest Abed thing ever. Was sending messages to all of the group. He kills Annie's backpack and releases Annie's boobs. The monkey.
Yeah.
He releases the monkey and then puts gum in Britta's hair. He cuts the AV cords from the TV. It'd be funny if he just unplugged it because Pierce wouldn't know how to do it anyway. But he sabotages it. So
it goes back to something you said a few episodes back, where it's just Abed's never mean. Like I don't feel like he's a bully. He's like truly actually just trying to like send a very clear message of like you're doing too much. And so,
right, because he wouldn't have fed dreadlocks out of like to make Shirley sad. Like it was just like, hey, I'm in control here.
Yeah,
right. This is the horse in your bed, like the horse head in your bed. Like
yeah. He did mention you. He said, Shirley, who is that? Oh, okay. And then Annie's voicemail to Abed, which
oh my gosh, what did you do to him? He's not picking up.
Yeah, and she was like, okay, so like this kind of long, but like, can we make like signature jackets for like our crew? Like I don't know, it's just like the energy of like I don't know. I just got an idea. Like,
should we order it a round of onion rings for the table? Should we do it? I think we're going
exactly. It's the same. Yeah. What do you guys got?
Well, Streets Ahead. I mean, this intro is one of the best introductions for any episode in this series because we get Streets Ahead, which is an iconic line.
It was so iconic that
it was my college graduation cap.
Yeah, it was.
Put that quote on my college graduation cap. Yes, and nobody got it.
Our grandparents were like, "What does that mean? Is that slang?"
Yeah. If you have to ask, your streets behind.
Is that what the urban youth are using these days?
Yeah.
But I mean, you get that. You get Britta's telling her story, and she's talking about her cat, and then everybody leaves to get the chicken. It just sets up the whole episode. But I kind of forgot the Streets Ahead was in this episode.
Yeah,
it was just a nice this is already a good episode. And
you think like it would be an episode of like the Luis Guzman episode where it's like it doesn't belong in there, but it's a really good episode and it has a great quote.
Yeah, it's a nice kind of like cold open, but it also ties into the episode.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Abed line. It's during that montage when they're like they're first introducing like this is what each person did, the roles. And Abed says something about Pierce's experience as a CEO taught him how to keep the wheels from squeaking. And it's supposed to be kind of like as a joke, I think, of just like Pierce. This is what Pierce is good at. He was a CEO, so he can keep people happy. When I thought about that line, it kind of is like a little dark. Just in the
moist towel industry is a rotten business. Let me tell you.
Yeah, like who is he quieting? Like, and what did he do? Because
Saudis.
Like obviously in Greendale, he's giving chicken tenders to the dean, but like. I don't know. I mean, unfortunately, I'm sure that's how it actually works in real life. Is like, whistleblowers get silenced. But I mean, I don't know. If you guys thought anything about that, or
I didn't think anything about it, but it makes sense of like you kind of forget in this first season that he is the tycoon of a moist towel industry. And I think they lean more into that in the last couple seasons, later seasons. I didn't think about that, but that is
a little dark. Not really dark, but it's just kind of like a. Huh.
Yeah.
It sounds like a throwaway line, but if you think about it, like, there's got to be some truth, something in there somewhere.
It reminds me, like, Pierce is kind of like Creed Bratton, where it's like, oh, I don't want to think about the stuff that he's done.
Yeah.
Like, it's played for laughs.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm okay with it, but you're like, oh, like in real life, like that'd be awful. Like,
You're a little scared of him, maybe, and if you actually knew what he'd done.
Yeah.
That's good.
It reminds me of the episode where he like becomes, Hawthorne Weiss becomes like a sponsor for the gay community. It's like they cost 10 times more, but they're gayer, so it works out. And like that's literally what corporations do in Pride Month. Like and not just like me who notices. Like everybody notices that. Like you pretend to care for 30 days so that way you get more money, and then you're just like, oh, back to normal.
And like you guys might have like seen this over social media, but like so it was like BMW. Like Colgate, like just like 4 ginormous companies, but like their overseas or like their
are completely different
in like the Middle East are like they're just regular logos.
Yep.
Like it's like over here in the West, it's like Pride logos, all the colors.
Well, that's like you think of like Marvel movies or Harry Potter movies, and it's like anytime that there's like a black character or there's like a gay like connection, like they make it stand alone so that way they can cut it out for the Chinese market, because like Chinese movies hate that stuff. But to your point about Pierce being a CEO who does rotten stuff, I wonder if his dad was more the person who would do that, and because like I think of the commercial that he's in, like it's not even him playing his dad's son, like he's just on the side. Like I don't think that Pierce really knew a lot about being a CEO. Like he just sort of like pretended that he knew that. Does that make sense?
He kind of just what his dad did, he kind of watched and tried to figure it out from there.
Like just kind of sort of like the spoiled younger child who inherited stuff. And that's kind of why he has those glory days that he revisits. Is while his dad was running the company, he was doing all this stuff, had sex with her, the kid, all that, dry humped in the back of her tour bus or whatever. But no, I really like this episode. I mean, obviously we all like the episode. But the first line of the episode is a Troy line. It's just so funny because he's like, I think I'm failing my pharmacology class. I thought it was a class about crazy farm animals.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm like,
it was a class about crazy farm animals.
Okay, and just I was like typing notes out for the episode, and then like he said, there I was like, no, pause the episode. I got to write that down. Write that down. And there's a line from Pierce whenever he and Jeff are going. No, I guess it's he and Troy who are going through the lunch line, and he's like, there are no chicken fingers. The least you could do is apologize. What are you, mute? And the lunch lady like gives him a card, and he's like reading through it. And he's like, well, throat surgery might humanize you. It doesn't make this acceptable. And he like gestures to the empty plate, and it's like, I love the fact that he just like reads it. He, like any other show would like, he would read it out loud.
Yeah,
I like how you can just guess from what it says based on his response. Like, that doesn't make it okay.
Yeah.
You're mentioning at the start of the conversation that Abed has some of those like socially unaware quotes where he's like, or I guess Jonathan, you were saying that where like, oh, Shirley, the dreadlocks guy was mentioning you the other day, and Abed was like, who is that? He does that, and then he also makes a quote about the guy having dreadlocks like the Terminator, but Shirley doesn't deserve to be, whatever that is. And Britta's like, I asked myself, what would everybody listening to me think if I said it? And Abed's like, the fact that you compulsively filter yourself makes your lack of flavor sort of a flavor.
Yeah.
I'm like, dang, Abed, go off. Because like, I remember
she's down already, Abed. She's down.
Stop. She's already dead.
Don't kick her in the head, dang.
let her get up. Let her get up.
Fight back, brother. Fight back.
Fight back. It just reminds me of like something that our grandma used to always say. Like, I always ask myself, is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? And it was always that exact inflection too. She'd sway back and forth. She'd have one finger out. Is it true? Is it kind? And is it necessary? And I just think about that because it's like everybody would always be like, oh, I got to make sure I don't offend somebody with like something that's, insensitive. And I was just like, it's true. Like the dreadlocks guy asked about you, but it was because he didn't know who you were. Right. So I was just like, yeah, Abed has BSD energy in this episode. Yeah. Like, let's be honest here. And then I just really like how in this episode, the whole like utility of power isn't drugs or like, booze, it's chicken fingers.
Mm-hmm.
Like if it was a prohibition era TV show, they'd be like, oh, we're bootleggers or like, narcos. Like drugs and crime shows are really popular nowadays. Like there's the Snowfall TV show Snowfall.
Yep.
I think there's just one called Narcos. Mm-hmm. Isn't Ozark about like drug running?
Drugs. Laundering money.
Okay,
yeah.
Well.
And drugs.
Yeah. Drugs and money, right? And it's like, it's refreshing to see something that's like, this is as like ridiculous as chicken fingers. Because like who doesn't like the staple of chicken fingers in a cafeteria, right? Like you always have the option of like, here's like baked ziti, or here's like, really bad lasagna, or there's chicken fingers. You're like, I don't like either of those things, but chicken fingers,
Old reliable.
Yeah.
Every restaurant has chicken tenders.
Even Mexican restaurants.
Exactly.
And they're always good.
Right.
Exactly. Which is that's a little thing about the episode. I'm like, do people actually get tired of chicken fingers?
I don't think I never do.
I was like,
I think that's what makes this you were talking about. Like that's what makes this episode brilliant is that they could have done anything, but everybody likes chicken fingers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you can relate to it in a way like, oh yeah, I could see this being like an actual currency.
Yeah. I think of like high school cafeterias and like what's the currency that people would have.
It was gum in high school.
Gum.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, or like fruit snacks or like anything like that.
Yeah.
But like, obviously we didn't have like a whole like smuggling business on the side, but I feel like, it could happen. It can happen. You never know. I loved Jeff's quote. He's like, oh, and by the way, I don't have an ego. My Facebook profile is a landscape.
Yeah.
And I felt so like targeted because whenever I was like 14, I went through a phase where my Facebook profile was a landscape because it's like, I want to be the kid who's mysterious and like sort of like, wisdom, wise and intellectual.
Yeah.
And let me tell you guys, I have so many Facebook posts that come of like, 7 years ago today, you like wrote this. I'm like, delete it every single time. Because there's just these like, the whole like fake deep of like, all of us go through life, but none of us are truly alive. Like just stupid stuff like that. But I just love like the really specific thing that Jeff uses. Like my Facebook profile is a landscape. I don't have an ego. Like, I don't know. I really like that. And this was something I'll tie it in later on with the fun facts about the episode. But I love that Pierce's entourage, he like requested a guy named Travis.
Yeah.
Like I want it, like there's no setup for that, I don't think, is there? Like,
nope.
Just like you ask for somebody named Travis, read his license. Travis is my middle name. But I go by Travis. You go by the door.
Yeah, now you go by the door. That was actually like one of the things that made Pierce like lead the class for me in this episode, because those little moments I enjoyed his I guess his quip, his like I don't know.
His timing is really, really good. Yeah.
And I loved my favorite line in this from Pierce is when gosh, I forgot what Jeff says exactly, but I think Jeff goes, "Say streets ahead and die." And
Pierce, streets ahead.
Yeah. He pauses for a second and goes, "Streets ahead."
Yeah.
Like
screw you, Jeff.
I just loved I don't know, just like he owned like that moment.
But even like there's a moment at the start of the episode where they're all like yelling over each other. I think it's just like before the chicken rung, and everybody's like chicken, and then Pierce is like streets ahead. Like,
yeah. That's awesome.
Who'd you have for leading the class, Ethan?
I have Abed. I mean, this is like we talked about this before. Like, there's a theory that like maybe the show's like from his perspective, and like Abed, like this episode literally is from his perspective because he's narrating it.
Yeah,
and this is one of the first times in the show that we get like the TV, like this is like a parody of something, which is some of the best episodes of Community are the parody ones. Like this is one of the first ones we get, one of the great episodes of the show. And I mean, he's narrating this. It's about him. Really, the payoff at the end is about him, and he's trying to connect to people. Hey, Remy. That's Christian's cat. But I just love that we kind of get almost like a villain side of Abed. He's not really being evil, but like he kind of is like the antagonist of this episode because
like if he really tried, he could take over the school.
Yeah,
like, let's be honest.
Like it's Jeff versus Abed really in this episode, and not that again, Abed's not bad, but for the purpose of this episode, he is the Don. Jeff is just like the outcast.
Yeah,
and so, but the way that the way Danny Pudi plays it, I think he just does a great job with his like the when they close the door. And there's like that the Godfather reference, and like they're kissing his hand at the table, and like there's another Godfather reference there. And I mean, there's something about Abed that he's obviously, he's not evil.
Yeah,
and maybe he's just like doing his thing. He's just chilling, like enjoying it. But it's so like mysterious and kind of like dark and brooding when you look at him.
Yeah,
like he's quiet, but he's dangerous.
It's kind of like the episode where the girls use him as like a Terminator, and he's like he just makes comments about people all the time. Like, Jeff doesn't defeat Abed. If you're looking at it from like a conflict, like if this was a mafia movie, like Abed is the crime boss and Jeff is the
FBI or whatever.
The FBI, or like the son that was like downcast or whatever. So like in the movie, that's the equivalent of Abed like either stepping down as the drug lord or like just like going off in the distance.
He like self-implodes his own business,
right?
Basically.
Like, have you ever seen the movie Road to Perdition? It has Tom Hanks and Jude Law and Paul Hudson. Is that the guy who played, or no, Paul Newman? Is the guy who played the Hudson Hornet? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got them in it. And so Tom Hanks is like an enforcer in like the 1920s or 30s, whenever the Prohibition is. And so, quick plot of the movie: Tom Hanks works for Paul Newman or whatever his name is. That right?
Yes.
Yeah. Paul Newman. Sorry. And then decides to step away. Like he doesn't want to be part of the business anymore. So Daniel Craig is Paul Newman's son. Daniel Craig goes and kills Tom Hanks's wife and son. And so that's like the road to perdition, is that Tom Hanks is too late. It's too late for him to be a good person, but he can have a better life for his oldest son. And so there's a scene, and it's honestly a really cool scene if you ever get a chance to watch it, where Tom Hanks goes, and it's like it's a really heavy rainfall. And so that's all you hear for a while is like the heavy rain, and like you see guys falling all around Paul Newman. And then like you see like the flash of the gun. And Paul Newman turns around and is like, "Oh, I'm glad it was you." And then Tom Hanks just shoots him,
That's great.
So it's a really cool scene. But like that would be the equivalent in this episode of like Abed is Paul Newman, Jeff is Tom Hanks. Like Tom Hanks would lose in that scenario, or like you'd have to ask Paul Newman to step down. And that's what's just so like, again, intimidating about this episode. And I agree. That's who I had. Abed was the leading the class of like, he is the epitome of, why are you booing me? I'm right. Because like he doesn't have to worry about like his image in other people's eyes. Like he knows what other people want, and that's how he goes about it. It's, and I'm going to move into my extra credit now because that's kind of what I was going for with that. But he even says like, it makes sense to me now. Like chicken is power. People like chicken, like kind of stuff like that. I don't need movies to be relevant.
Everyone's
like
speaking the same language.
Yeah. Like if you notice his acting in that episode, that scene, like he talks slower and he makes eye contact with Jeff. It's kind of like in My Dinner with Abed, where you're like, man, this is really weird because Danny Pudi is being himself. He's not being Abed. He's talking slower. And like for that split second, you're like, oh, that makes sense. Like Abed is starting to figure it out, like because he has a very like computational, analytical brain. But if you look, whenever Jeff goes and visits him in like that side room, and he has like that list of like, oh, here's the study group, here's what they like and they need. Like, there's that. Did you pause that and like look through it? Yeah. I loved some of the stuff that like Pierce wants. Again, he wants a guy named Travis in his group. That's what he needs. But also like one of the things that he liked was Shirley. Did you see that?
No,
I noticed that.
Yeah,
you like Shirley.
Yeah, he's like Shirley. Like that's more of like there's not really anything to back that up. Like I wish that there was something to back that up, but I like Abed likes birds and banjo music. Those are two things that he liked. Jeff needs a law degree, which I thought was really funny. Like it was just, oh yeah, well obviously he does. Britta likes to think that she is helping was another one.
Annie likes pills was my favorite.
Really?
Yeah. Oh. It says pills. It's kind of hard to read, but I think that's what it says is pills. Yeah.
And so that got me thinking, because again, I like to do like hypotheticals, like what if in this episode, what if Abed was so powerful that he was able to get Jeff a law degree?
Ooh.
What like I know that like a community college can't give you that, but like just like what if he was so powerful that he was like, hey Jeff, I've got something for you, and that's like supposed to like keep Jeff quiet.
Dang.
And so because that would make an interesting conflict, because Jeff would be like, okay, what are my priorities here? Is it because that I came to college to get my law degree, or is it that I want to address this like ego, like again, like I'm not in control and I want to seize control back from Abed? Because then he'd have to be like, no, I don't want your stupid law degree. I want to take you down.
Yeah.
So like that would have been a really interesting inclusion in the episode.
Yeah, it could be like a law school, like I don't know, the other side of town,
right?
And so it's like they're on the chicken hook too.
Yeah, and so I was like, I'm going to give you guys as much chicken as you want to get this degree. Yeah, that would be so cool, I think. But another little extra credit thing, I don't remember what the setup for it was, but Troy was like, not that I'm Catholic, but if it was cool to eat God, I'd be a chicken finger.
Yeah.
And I think it's really funny because like none of us are Catholic either, but like in Catholicism, like communion, transubstantiation says that whenever you take communion, like you're literally eating the body and blood of Christ. Like it becomes Christ's body whenever you eat it. So I'm like, that's kind of a funny, I don't know if that's what he was going for, but it sounds a lot like communion is a chicken finger. Like if I could eat God, like it'd be a chicken finger.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. That was just a funny little like inclusion thing. If you're not Catholic and you don't know about transubstantiation, like that joke just kind of goes over your head. But like, I've done my research, so it's pretty funny.
It's an interesting thing, like with Dan Harmon. I feel like he maybe could, because we're like all three like Christians and like just I don't know. That's obviously a big part of our lives, and like we're
it feels like he maybe knows more about it.
Well, it's just that like I feel like in Rick and Morty and in this like. There's just a bunch of like references to like,
come on, Morty, I'm not talking beaver who believes in Jesus Christ.
But yeah, it's kind of a Narnia thing. Like, what I mean? Like, I just feel like there's a bunch of like little references and like little connections.
See, Morty, I know it feels hopeless and dark, but at your darkest moment, you can always count on your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Ethan's never seen it, so he doesn't know anything we're talking about, but just take our word for it.
I don't know. It's just an interesting thing. Again, probably because of just our background that like, I picked up from.
It's kind of like growing up. You're like, man, I really hope Post Malone becomes a Christian because he can make some really good Jesus music. Yeah. Like I really hope Dan Harmon becomes a Christian because I like his TV shows.
Yeah. What do you guys got? Anything else?
Do you know who Hal Holbrook is? Did you look it up, Ethan?
Hal Holbrook. I've heard that name.
I didn't.
Yeah.
Because Jeff is like, oh. He went from being a Johnny Five to an evil Hal. No, not Hal Holbrook, because Pierce is about to be like, Hal Holbrook?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a actor. I mean, I don't
like an old one.
I mean, he was an actor a long time ago.
Yeah.
He died last year, actually. I don't really recognize him from the pictures, but that doesn't mean.
But he obviously he means Hal from Earth 2000. Is that Space Odyssey 2001? Space Odyssey?
Yeah.
Space Odyssey.
Space Odyssey.
I'm sorry, Dave.
Yeah,
I can't do that. But Ethan, did you have anything else for extra credit?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned this earlier, and this is obviously a parody of mafia movies, TV shows, Goodfellas, Sopranos. Or I don't think there's any Sopranos references, but the Godfather, Goodfellas. It's just it's definitely a parody of that genre. So there's some references, even some like direct filmography references. Like I mentioned, the door closing on Abed and the group and keeping Jeff out. That's a reference to the end of the first Godfather movie. The door closes on I can't remember the girl's name, the wife,
Connie.
I can't remember her name. I think it's Kay, maybe
Lonnie.
And I don't know if you guys, the newspaper headline, did you read that? Whenever they take the picture of, but it says Stargate. Headline in reference to Watergate, not the 1994 sci-fi film. Nice little Easter egg. I mean, it's not really an Easter egg because it's right there.
Right. If you it's just kind of a fun, like, oh, yeah.
But yeah, it's I don't know, nice little extra credit thing there. You got anything, Jonathan?
No, I don't think so. Nothing I really want to say at this point. I guess like on to like my final thoughts here. I guess a little nitpick is like, so obviously Star Burns is the one that tells Jeff about the valve that they don't make anymore.
Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting because I feel like Star Burns is a pretty selfish character for the most part. And like, he doesn't get his job back at the end. So like, there's not really an angle for him to like help.
Like, why didn't he do it already? Like,
yeah.
Why didn't he just go and take the valve out?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, that was just kind of like a little thing.
And obviously he was just the plot device for Jeff to do it, right? That's obviously what it was. But you're right. Like, it's kind of weird that he wants to help Jeff. Maybe because he's just so angry at Abed and like, oh, now you're one of us. How does it feel? Mm-hmm. Like he's the enemy of my enemy is my friend, sort of thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
I noticed that too.
But overall, I think super strong episode. Just got one plot straight through, which like it's a good enough plot that like it feeds the whole thing. Like he doesn't need to like have a B plot into this. I'd probably say 8 out of 10 episode, closer to a 9 than a 7 for sure. But yeah, just a classic episode. Community, very rewatchable for sure.
Yeah.
What do you guys got?
I'd probably go 9 out of 10. I mean, this is a definitely top 10 episode for the whole show for me. It might be top 5. I don't know. I need to make my list sometime.
A non-Russo brothers top 5 episode.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's the parody episodes are obviously, like I said, some of the best of the show, and Community could really, really lean on the parodies a lot, and they do a lot of parody episodes. But when they do it well.
This isn't Family Guy. We don't have to do that,
right? I mean, they do the parodies so well that that's why they're so memorable. And I mean, again, this is just like a great stretch of Community episodes, and that's what makes the show so great. Is something so normal, like Chicken Fingers,
come to an end, but the stretch of good episodes is going to come to an end.
Yeah. After this one, I mean, it's just there's such an exaggeration of like chicken tenders at a community college and turning it into a mafia movie. Brilliant, Dana Harmon. Nobody else would have thought of that probably.
And I love like the concept too within that of just like, I feel like that was like a thing with like even back to elementary, high school, middle school, like where it's like there's like 1 or maybe 2 like really good like lunch items, and then everything else is just kind of like it's passable. But like, because I think like at my middle school it was like the pizza. Yeah, everything else was like fine. But like I
like the square cut pizzas.
Well, at my middle school was the first time I had like an actual triangular pizza at school. So I was like,
when the big leagues now, boys.
Exactly. The boys are back in town.
Boys are back in town.
So, but yeah, I love the relatability of like, oh gosh, if this is out, then I don't know. Yeah.
So this might be a little controversial. I don't think it is, but some people could see this. I'm going to give this episode the perfect score of a Raising Cane's, especially compared to high school cafeteria chicken tenders. I can remember our high school had they were like pear shaped or like teardrop shaped chicken tenders, and they were like crumbs breading. They weren't like crispy fried batter tenders by any means. It was like the ones that you bake in the oven and you have to like vacuum clean the pan. You know what I'm talking about? Like they're just so dry. Like they're not crunchy. They're not good. Or maybe the ones that they're also the ones that you get them and they're frozen. So whenever you cook them, the little ice chunks melt and they make it soggy. Like I hate those so much.
You need to air fry your chicken tenders, man.
Yeah, I have an air fryer, man. I'm not bougie like you guys. But I give this episode a Raising Cane's out of school cafeteria chicken tenders. It was that good of an episode. I would even go so far as to say Raising Cane's with an extra piece of Texas toast rather than coleslaw.
Amen. Yes.
Amen. Screw the coleslaw. I'm not a slaw guy in general, So
have you guys seen the memes on like social media about like me? It's like it'll be like me going to hell the day I die, and then like me finding the guy who like made coleslaw, and it's like one gorilla throwing another gorilla into a wall or something like that. I was like, accurate. Like,
it kind of reminds me. There's one. It's like it's a Family Guy cutaway gag, and it's like Brian Griffin pees on the guy who made Hoover vacuums. It's like, you know, Don Hoover.
Yeah.
And then Peter Griffin is peeing on the guy who's like Dan Vegetable. It's like the guy who invented vegetables. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So, unfortunately, we now go into The Art of Discourse.
Boo.
Season 1, episode 2.
You suck.
I'm gonna go into a brief synopsis, but I'm gonna have to do like where I run out of breath before every sentence. so that way, this episode doesn't even deserve my attention.
Amen.
So Jeff and Britta have a fight with a couple of high schoolers who are getting dual credit. The whole joke is just that they're immature high schoolers and that
slap.
It's just so bad. And then the other plot is just as bad too. It's Pierce and Shirley are fighting. They both want to leave the group because Pierce is racist, and the whole episode is Pierce and Shirley trying to work their things out so they can be back in the study group. So can I just go through my whole thoughts of the episode and we could just do one of each?
Go for it.
I mean, so the best part of the episode was the end scene with Troy and Abed. Like that's really sad. It was the whole like, what's your porno name? It's the name of your elementary school and then your favorite soft drink. So I'd be New York Baja Blast if I was a porn actor. And then the scene ends with bass music. And then the guy with the delivery driver, did anybody order its pizza? It's like extra sausage. And then Lennon is on the corner. He's like, oh, that was mine. He's playing the bass. Because Troy and Abed hear the bass music. Like, I don't know. There's just the timing of that. Like the whole, like what caused that? Like, what was the prompt that started that conversation? Because it doesn't really connect with the rest of the episode.
Nope.
I guess that was, if I have to give that for the synopsis, like what Troy and Abed do in the episode is they have to like fulfill all of the cliche college movie tropes, which is admittedly kind of funny. Like I did like that, but there just wasn't enough of that in the episode. It was definitely the C plot. I did like Abed's college experience list of like he smashes Pierce's guitar and like that was played so genuine. And he's like, what the hell? And he just like starts. It doesn't break, so he's like smashing it even harder.
Yeah,
and he hands it back, and he's like, sorry, I had to do it. Or getting pants with checkered underwear, like that's it's good.
Once he pants somebody, I texted our friend Nick, and I was like, honestly, we should have pants some people in college. It's like once or twice a year, like
best friends fight before a climactic thing cliche. Like he makes that to get Troy to do the Boobatron 4000. That was pretty funny. So I did say I thought Abed led the class. Nobody led the class in this episode because it was just not good. The humor didn't sit right. It was frustrating. The pace, like the interactions with Shirley and Pierce, they weren't counterproductive because there were like probably 3. It was Pierce, pants Shirley, which makes her mad. Pierce tries to go apologize and messes up with another black woman. Like that's Pierce. And then they're in the library and they kind of have a heart to heart. So like, it wasn't like, Pierce tries 3 or 4 times and apologizes, and then every single time it messes up. Like that would have been unbearable. Like I would have just stopped watching the episode. But like, so I do have to give credit for that. And I do appreciate what Pierce says about Shirley. He's like, like you're a single mother of 2. Like I respect you more than anybody in the study group respects you or respects, anybody respects somebody else.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate that, but it's almost like the opposite of what we've seen the last 3 episodes that we've talked about, which is very much show don't tell.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's very much like, oh, Shirley and Annie like develop as security guards in the last podcast episode that we talked about. Or like Abed like is in control, like he has power as the chicken boss. But here it's just like, okay, Pierce says this about Shirley, but he doesn't show that through any of the other episodes, right? Like it said, oh, Pierce likes Shirley on the wall for Abed's chicken fingers. So like it doesn't feel well deserved that he says that he respects her, because I think that's kind of the whole thing is they all start running through all of the faults that Pierce has. He's like, you call me that black woman, and well, you call the other 2 girls the flat butt and the one that Abed wants to nail, or your crafty little Jew brain. Like, no one takes a compliment, and that didn't feel good either because like there's no like he doesn't redeem himself because of that, like ever, and like. Again, if this was another sitcom, he'd be like, you know what, guys, you're right. Like I have been stuck in my ways, and I am like, 'cause it'd be like a very like left-leaning, politically correct TV shows. He's like, and we need to be careful of COVID-19. He just like look at the guy and he's like, wash your hands and social distance and wear your face masks. Kind of like the
KN95,
like the Parks and Rec reunion show that they had.
Don't even.
We had to follow the CDC's guidelines. Like, yeah. So
that's what Ron would say, of course.
Yeah, that's exactly what Ron would say. But, I did like at the end of the episode, too, that there's like the little like college food fight. Like it's kind of a college parody, college movie parody. And one of the things is like Britta Perry, a proud owner of a used iPod Nano 2014. And like whenever Pierce dies, that's what he gives Britta. A used iPod Nano. Like that's what you get. So there's a fun little bit for that. And then Kelly, the annoying high school girl, became a sociology professor last year in the episode. I don't know what the actress did, but it's in 2021. It was like, oh, that's already coming on. This episode's so old that 2021 was in the future, you know? So that was kind of fun that they had that there. But I give this episode, oh my gosh. I just give it a heavy sigh. That's my rating.
I like it. Yeah, this episode blows for the most part. It's such a frustrating episode to watch.
Chunks.
And like we talked about this before we started this pod, but like those high school, I mean, again, it's good in the sense of it garners a reaction from us that like oh, we want to punch these people, but like it's such a frustrating situation, like because I mean like they can't like go to the dean and like complain. Like what's the dean gonna do? Like the dean's not gonna cut off that program with the high school. Like it's just like I don't know. Because like I mean we see like Jeff is usually able to like quip and like speak his way out of it, and like I feel like in a regular like if this was like actual high schoolers, like yeah he could like say something or do something that like,
because I thought the plan that they had to bang his mom would bang Mark's mom, like that was pretty good.
Dynamite,
yeah. But just the episode
dynamite,
yeah. But the episode like they just didn't let that happen. Like okay, so let me say this. Excuse me. Maybe Dan Harmon is just such a genius, a cinematic genius that his humor and his storytelling is just beyond me. Or maybe this episode just really blows. Like it could be one or the other. And if it's the first one, then I submit. Just take it away, Dan. But this episode just really,
It's a very like. I will say, like you said, there are some interesting ideas that are proposed. I did like the concept of, Pierce actually like Pierce doesn't punch down because like with Shirley, it's not like it's like he actually respects her more than anybody else in the group. And so because of that, he like feels it's safe to pants her. Like, so in that, the concept of like, oh, like I'm not punching down. Like I see you as my
equal, right?
So it was like, okay, that's kind of an interesting concept.
He should have still said like, okay, what I did was wrong. Like, cause he still stands by that. He's like, I'm not going to apologize for panting you. Like, maybe should have. Exactly. But the avenue that they went down was acceptable.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. And then like, the C plot of Abed and Troy doing like the college things. It got me thinking of like my own college experience where like, I think my college experience was true to myself because like, I'm not a very like, I'm not a very fun person, honestly. Like I'm pretty boring. Like I'd rather talk about like funny things than like
2 a.m. than
like do funny. Like, I mean, like,
let's go do something.
Yeah. Shout out to Caleb. But yeah, so like, I thought it was like, okay, that's kind of fun. And like, kind of got me kind of reminiscing, if you will. But again, that was like, what, 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes of the episode of the entire episode. So not enough time. And yeah, just a very frustrating episode to watch. Not very funny. The food fight at the end was like kind of fun. I always kind of wanted to be in a food fight. But again,
I would just think about all of the cleanup afterwards. Yeah,
like if everyone's cleaning up, I'm fine with it. But yeah, what you got, Ethan?
I mean, I can't express my hatred for this episode enough.
I mean, you can, but it's gonna be hard.
I mean, I'd have to go back. I'd have to go look, and maybe as we rewatch the show, this may be my least favorite episode of the whole show. It's up there, and probably most people would agree with that. It's just there's not really a line that makes me laugh or anything that makes me laugh. I mean, even the Troy and Abed plot, like it's okay, but it's just it didn't make me laugh.
Mm-hmm.
It's more just like, oh, here's some like nice
some not awkward humor.
Yeah, it's like non-cringy humor. Like here's kind of a nice little leave from the other two plots that it's okay, but it didn't make me laugh at all. The only characters that I feel like you don't hate in this episode is Annie, and that's because she's not in the episode. She's barely in there. I mean, I guess Troy and I don't hate them, but like we don't see Annie at all. So like,
yeah.
I mean, I guess she's like the only character that I don't know. It just this episode after the like last 3 or 4 that we've watched that have been really, really good. Like you can't bat 100 or like 1,000%, you can't bat 1,000 in baseball. So like you got to have, you got to strike out at some point. And this is like a huge whiff for the show. But again, I want to go back to the point of like, maybe Dan Harmon thought that having the cringy humor, like I'm just trying to get in the headspace. Cause like this feels like an episode of New Girl, or an episode of Call Me Cat. Again, I don't like Call Me Cat, or I'm not a huge fan of New Girl. Like it doesn't feel like humor from a Community episode. Like,
yeah,
we're going to have still shots of Gillian Jacobs and Joel McHale of going duh into a camera. And I know like, and brilliant. Keep going, Gillian.
It's gold.
Like, you have to think that was an intentional decision. Like he knew that it was stupid. Maybe he just thought that people would laugh at like how ridiculous it was, and they just didn't.
Yeah.
But like, you have to give your audience something to hold on to, right? Like just in storytelling in general. Like I think of like movies like The Road with Viggo Mortensen and I can't think of what his son's name, but basically it's like the whole movie is just about like nihilism and like there's no hope, because it's like the whole thing is post-apocalypse or whatever, and the whole thing is like we have to go down this road, and at the end is something that's like to look forward to, and then they get to the end and Viggo Mortensen dies.
No,
like, I know, right?
Which
spoiler alert?
Yeah. You weren't gonna watch the movie, didn't you?
I've seen it.
Oh,
like for people who haven't seen it, huge spoiler alert.
No. Well,
the funny thing about Viggo Mortensen too was like I didn't realize like until like I was like in high school that he was Aragorn, right, in like Lord of the Rings. So I was like, oh, that's like arguably some of the biggest movies ever. Everything like, else was like
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Filmography is like like kind of indie, smaller, like kind of cuter, like kind of more thoughtful stuff. Yeah.
And so, but with this episode again, like if I never have to watch this episode again, fine. Like I watched this episode once to write it down. Like some of the other episodes I've watched like 2 or 3 times to get the experience. Like I didn't want to finish this episode because there's like you get to the end, and so what happens to the 3 students? One of them becomes a sociology professor at Yale or Harvard. One of them becomes a Michigan Supreme Court justice. And then the ringleader, Mark, is like, his whereabouts are unknown. His medical license was revoked. And I'm like, that's not enough.
Yeah.
I want you to nail this kid to the wall. Like once he's legal, nail him to the wall. And you're like, and Shirley and Pierce never wed. Like that was kind of funny, admittedly. And then Troy and Ovid will be back in College Life 2, Penny Raid.
The Penny Raid.
Yeah. And
oh gosh,
it's just so much of this is not satisfying. Like Pierce and Shirley getting along does, but I feel like in future episodes, like they don't address, like they don't come back to this.
Yeah,
it's still like Pierce does something like sexist or racist or misogynist towards Shirley, and she's like uncomfortable. Like I don't feel like it changed anything, rather than at least we don't have 2 episodes where they're not part of the group. And it's like here's a 3-parter episode where in each episode, a small plot takes place, but Pierce and Shirley aren't part of it for some reason, because in the last episode, they weren't in the group. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like nothing comes out of this.
Yeah. Pierce this is basically, I think, the start of Pierce's downfall for the show.
Yeah.
Because we've had some really, I mean, I feel like I've mentioned him as my top of the class for like quite a few of the episodes we've had season 1, and he's been okay. There's been some hard moments, but for the most part, you're laughing like at him. And now it's just like he's just so unbearable. Like you're still supposed to laugh at him being so clueless.
He sat down next to the wrong black lady. Like, oh, it's so funny.
It's just it's so cringy and hard to watch, and he's just so unlikable that.
And there is no like come to Jesus moment, like for lack of a better term. Like again, I don't expect him to like wink at the camera and be like, all right, guys, wash your hands for 20 seconds and 6 feet apart. But you want
neutered. Okay.
Spay and neutered pets, right? But like I think any character who's a protagonist in a series, like you want to see them grow for the better. And I just don't think Pierce ever really does, besides those like weird sage advice moments that happen honestly, in this episode, not very much after this. Like, he really just becomes the worst. Like, in Dungeons and Dragons, like, he's just the worst. He doesn't have a redemptive moment.
Like, which is another interesting thing that, like, I've seen a lot that, like, oh, Dungeons and Dragons is the best episode. But I'm like, I feel like it's a very frustrating episode to watch for most of it, where it's like, I can see why in terms of like tension and like, kind of like fighting through that. But I'm like,
I think people
like, if more than half of it is very frustrating to watch, then like, how is this the best? I don't know. That's just me.
I think more people they like Dungeons and Dragons more than they care to admit. You know?
Yeah.
There are some funny moments from that episode too. So, I mean, it's not like the episode, I mean, I don't think it drags it down. I get what you're saying though. Like the Pierce plot does in that episode, which we'll get there.
Yeah.
How are we going to watch that one? Because it's not on Netflix.
Amazon Prime.
Yeah, they took that episode off because of the Chang Dark Elf.
Blackface, yeah. I forgot that.
Is it on Prime?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was as of like a month ago.
I'll buy the DVD.
Just that one.
Yeah.
Pirate
Bay.
There. Just side note. I was doing a 30 Rock watch through. Probably like last year, and like there are like 3 episodes where they did blackface. I was like, dang.
So, side note, where's the 30 Rock rewatch? Are we gonna do that next? Because that would be a pretty good rewatch podcast.
It was
first time watch through for me.
Okay, it's pretty fun.
You'd like it,
and it's pretty quick too. Like in terms of like
it's just it's on. It's on Hulu. I don't have ad free Hulu, so I get really tired of watching.
It's on Netflix too now.
Oh, is it?
It was.
Well,
yeah.
No, Hulu. If you're listening to this, get some different ads because I'm tired of seeing the same Old Navy and Progressive ads for like 2-minute long ad breaks.
Yeah.
And there's 4 of them in a 20-minute episode, so it's like this is not worth it. But do we have any other thoughts?
So I think we need to send this episode off. Put the nails in the coffin and send it out to sea afloat.
Agreed.
Shoot it in the head.
Agreed.
Yeah, finish it off.
Take it behind the shed. Shoot it in the head.
Yeah. I think we need to flame this episode. Send it off.
Man, this episode was so bad, it doesn't even belong in season 4 Community.
Ooh. Okay.
This episode is so bad, its favorite movie is Thomas and the Magic Railroad. This episode is so bad that the zookeeper at the Cincinnati Zoo shot it instead of Harambe.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Harambe.
Yeah.
This episode is so bad that Fox picked it up for a 3rd season.
No.
Oh, call me cat. Oh,
Get that out of here.
Maybe it's only season 2. I don't know.